Welcome to the Simple Minds podcast, where we look to empower and encourage real conversation amongst men everywhere by unpacking topics on self-help, philosophy, and business.
G'day everybody, we've got four of the famous, what do we call ourselves, the simpletons?
Famous five.
Famous four. We're the famous four. Oh, what a day. What a week. What a week it's been.
This is going to be an episode.
Welcome Jacob Moffat.
Thank you, Conrad. Happy to be here.
Justin Bourne.
What's up?
Matt J. Hannam.
Good afternoon, Conrad.
Good afternoon. And me, Conrad. I'm hosting.
And I.
I'm hosting. Hi. Anyway, there's a bit of a strange smell in the air. Oh no, not smell in the air. What do you say? It's July. It's July. This will be released in July. It's the 50th anniversary of the greatest conspiracy known to man.
And we don't know which way you're leaning on this, do we?
No, the greatest achievement to man.
Well, I guess could be. Hey, I mean that's the seesaw we're going to play with. But I was talking to a friend this morning about where I waste my time, and you know, time is a very valuable commodity, and there's lots of things going on in the world. And they were very surprised to hear that I waste my time Googling info on the moon landing. I really do. And I've wasted a lot of people's time with my stories and the information I've found. But given the fact that it's the 50th anniversary of the supposed Apollo 11 moon landing, I thought I'll throw the topic open. We can have a chat about what people believe, why they believe what they believe, and I can share some of the knowledge I've curated over the last gazillion years of my life, because this is the only place I could probably get rid of it.
This is
I could probably kill my Evernote folder.
30 to 40-minute episode, Conrad.
Mate, I've got lots of questions. I'll be surprised what you guys actually know about this moon landing. That, you know, apparently it changed the state of the world. You know, the space race as we knew it then, between the Russians and the Americans at that stage. You know, as soon as America landed on the moon, the Russians gave up. Apparently, it's no real different to, I guess, the history of flight. If you guys know that story with the Wilbur brothers, the Oliver brothers, the Wright brothers.
Wright brothers.
The Wright brothers.
Get it right, mate.
The Wright brothers and
Wyszynski's.
the Wright brothers, and who was the other dude in New York? Pierpont Langley. Whereas Pierpont Langley was funded by the New York Times, and the Wright brothers were funded by the bike store. And as soon as the Wright brothers took flight or declared that they took flight, Pierpont Langley gave up. And it almost feels the same with the Russians. You know, they were apparently the first to put somebody in space, with Yuri Gagarin being the first man in space, apparently. Some people will tell you there's probably people earlier, but Yuri was the first man declared by the Russians that they put in space. The Americans put a monkey into space before they put man into space. And then they went with the Mercury 7 guys, and those guys got into space orbit, and then obviously from Mercury went to the Gemini program, and then on to the Apollo series. And the Apollo series was all about putting man on the moon. You guys up with me, or have I lost you already?
We're still up. Yep. Feel free to send something else to launch as well.
Oh shit! Yeah.
The way this sub-show works, Conrad, is you pour a drink.
So to celebrate the 50th anniversary of whatever happened on that beautiful day in 1969, 20th of July 1969, we'll have some champagne.
T-minus.
And it's Henri Obelet. We've had this before, but this is the Blanc de Blanc. I actually don't know what that means.
Blanc de Blanc.
But if anyone wants to enlighten us, please leave a comment, Angelica Nora. Please share us with what the hell this is.
Is it just me, or are you really enjoying the sound of your own voice on this particular episode?
If I don't speak, you're going to push a button on me. Ready? Ready? Here we go. Go. Did I hit it?
No, you put the cork through the soft light.
All right, cheers. Here we go. I'm pouring this stuff. Looks really nice.
And we have liftoff.
We've been sucking on some helium gas, I reckon. Oh, a bit low there, Justin. So, gentlemen, anyone want to give their take? Do they believe in the moon landing or do they not? Let's establish where we sit on this before we throw some facts on the table.
Let's set a platform.
Yeah.
I, Jacob, believe in it.
There's no Bible in front of you. and Justin?
I believe also that we landed on the moon.
Matthew?
Look,
Yes or no, mate?
no, I want to believe, but I would say that I always did because I hadn't questioned it up until I started questioning it. and the only reason that I wouldn't give a definitive I don't believe in it is because I wouldn't say I've done the work.
Cheers.
And understand enough of it. But I'm very quickly being shown many reasons why I think I just can't get my head around the science, but I want to believe in the magic.
I'm not sure about you guys, but I grew up really enamoured with space, and I still am. I do have a telescope at home. I look at the moon.
You probably watched the
moon landing. Not quite, mate. It happened 3 years earlier, but anyway. And the program was ended a year before I was born, so I look at the moon frequently. I am very much enamoured with the planets and space in general, and apparently it's well said or well known that there's more known about space than there is known about our own brains and how we work. So that's actually quite interesting, right? But I guess I grew up loving and getting lost in books about space, not necessarily flight, but just space. And I guess like everybody else of my era, there's probably no one here of my era, but I'm not sure whether you guys remember the space shuttle. Yep, space shuttle program. So that was really cool when that was going up and down and doing everything it was doing. Obviously until that fateful day when Columbia exploded. I got interested in anything I get my hands on when it comes to space. And obviously with the onset of the internet, I didn't grow up with the internet unlike you guys. So with the onset of the internet and when I've got time these days, I still just find myself Googling stuff about space and more importantly, the moon landing. And I guess that's what opened the Pandora's box as to there's some plausible arguments that support the conspiracy against the fact that it actually happened. And there's been some great movies. There was a great movie made in the 80s on the Mercury 7 guys called The Right Stuff, which I watched recently. 3-hour epic. It's worth watching if you guys haven't seen it yet. And there's a new movie just been released to acknowledge the 50th anniversary called The First Man, all about Neil Armstrong. So guys, I guess, what is your relationship with space, with the moon? Do you guys think about it? What would it do to you if we actually didn't land on the moon? Would it mean anything to you?
I guess
Get some mic time in.
I'm very similar to you, Conrad. I grew up loving kind of what's out there. A lot of my interest in science was originally from looking into space and how those things work. I was and I've also always been an eternal optimist, and with that comes a small degree of naivety in that you just kind of believe things, like you said, Matt, the magic of it. You kind of just want to believe it. My personal belief can be summed up in, I just personally feel it would be harder to fake than it would to be to actually do, in terms of the resources they would have needed and the keeping everyone quiet and making kind of the entire thing up. I just feel would have been harder than actually just doing it and getting there. And I just like to believe that big governments don't lie to us.
That's fucking naive.
You sure? What else do they lie to us about?
On that scale.
Look, I'm very much the same. So I've grown up super interested in space as well. I was fascinated by the space shuttle and rockets, and I used to draw a lot of
you both got an engineering background, right? I know it's not rocket engineering, but a very technical background.
Yeah, I'm always been fascinated with how things work and all this type of stuff. And I think, I used to draw it a lot, love space, love Star Wars, all that type of stuff. And I used to think it was a conspiracy. It's pretty easy. You watch a lot of the conspiracy theories and you can be swayed, I think, relatively easily. But I think I'm on the same same argument that through other documentaries and taking a bit of a zag and looking not at the footage and the launch itself, is that if you look at the film technology available at the time, it was actually it was impossible to fake. If you actually took the science from what would have taken to produce the actual production, it was impossible to fake. And I work in CGI and stuff like that now, and we blend stuff. And even the fact of like video production, you know, Matt does video production in here, trying even to get a Facebook live stream today's technology, let alone trying to pull what they pulled off seamlessly without a single hiccup, and how many people were involved, is next to impossible. So just on that single argument, I don't see how. So that kind of what swayed me. I watched a documentary that explained in very detail. It's actually on YouTube. You can watch it. It's only, I think there's an excerpt of it. It's about 10, 15 minutes long. And he explains from a film point of view how it just wasn't possible. And I think if it was possible, I think whoever made it and the people involved in making it should get an award, because there is no Hollywood film, even with the money that they've spent, that comes close to matching the realism of it. And I watched some of the Apollo 17 footage, the last one that went up last night, and I was in awe. Like,
they reckon the producer was Stanley Kubrick, right? That's the consensus on who produced the moon landing.
But if you watch like the Apollo 17 footage, you can't. Like, there's no way you could fake that.
Well, let me ask you this question. There's footage of the lunar lander, the Apollo 11 lunar lander landing on the moon. This is on a NASA website. Lunar lander landing on the moon. Who took the photo?
What do you mean?
I had a drone.
Yeah, they had a drone. But then NASA came back and corrected that statement. Okay, and again, this is online. NASA corrected the statement by saying, no, that was the lunar lander taking off. But yet there was no flag in the photo, because Buzz Aldrin's now come out and said that the flag fell down. But there's no flag in the picture.
Well, there is one theory that the thrusters from trying to get off the moon blew the flag away. So
even if I believe that,
but
who developed the film?
But then when you go one step further, the film technology back then was on actual film. So
who developed the film?
So in order to develop the film, you would need to fake it. You would need literally 3 truckloads of film to fake how long it was, because you remember it was filmed live. So there was moments where it was
this is a stationary photo.
Yeah, but you got to, if you're going to fake the whole thing, you've got to look at everything, right? So there was a lot of dead space. Like I haven't watched the full thing, but there's a lot of dead space where it's actually boring to watch. And so in order to fake that seamlessly, because they had to do film to cut the splices on the film without getting specks or dust over how long it was. And then there's this theory of this, they slow-mo'd it. To slow-mo film, you either have to essentially film twice as much and then slow it down. And so even then, if you did that, there were no film rolls big enough, like the technology didn't exist. So
that's the general consensus when you're looking at people that are trying to debunk the conspiracy
and then
around the filming and the editing and the lighting, right? That's the general consensus.
And then the other one would be that, which I found a really cool article, is that there were 400,000 people involved in the moon landing, $150 billion apparently over the whole space program.
Yep. And
there's this guy,
in someone's pockets,
Robert Grimes, or I think his name is. There's an article here. He developed a algorithm, proper algorithm that can forecast how long conspiracies can stay a conspiracy. So he went through the history of conspiracies that have been exposed, and he developed a formula that kind of defines how many people are involved versus when the conspiracy exposes, when a whistleblower comes forward. And on average, 4 years was the number. And he determined that in order to keep a conspiracy going more than 4 years, even at the tops of 10 years, you would need only 100 people to be involved to be able to keep that conspiracy essentially a secret. So according to his formula...
Sorry, with 400,000 people, right, Yeah, sorry, with this formula, I get it.
With this formula, 4 years, if it was based on that, every other conspiracy has been within that time frame. The moon landing should have been debunked within 4 years. A whistleblower should have come forward.
9/11 hasn't been debunked yet.
But it's not 400,000 people. Now, I'm digging this apart. Not Conrad wants everyone to think it's total bullshit.
No, I don't care. I
want to be proven that it's true. So, but my point, if I'm going to look at that point, is that 400,000 people didn't need to, they were working on it for 10 years. Potentially, it would only have been towards the very end when they realised there was no chance that maybe a small group of people grabbed it and went sideways with it, and the majority of people just fulfilled their standard duty as was necessary to make it look like it happened anyway.
But when you think about over the span of it, I find that considering how many whistleblowers and even with WikiLeaks and stuff like that,
399,000, 900 of them might have just done the bit that they were supposed to do anyway.
I don't dispute, and this is not about me trying to convince you that it didn't happen. Right? I'll be very clear. I love conspiracy theories because it allows you to think differently and laterally. Right? I use them as an absolute mental game. So, so it's for me it's about plausibility. Okay, it's about I can believe to some extent that it's happened. My questions are, why has nobody else gotten back there? That's a real question. Why are we now trying to get back to the moon when since 1971 we haven't bothered about that fact? Let me play this piece to you. I don't know whether we can play it or how we splice it in, but I'll play it on here. Oh, forget this clown, but
you might want to put the volume up.
Right, listen to this. This is Don Pettit, who is a NASA scientist. Sorry, a NASA astronaut.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
That's a NASA astronaut. We've destroyed the technology, and it's a painful process to build it back up again. That's a NASA astronaut. He's got a wiki page. He's legit.
Well, they did the SpaceX. Google did a competition for someone to get a rover or an object onto the moon. Did you see that? $20 million prize.
Yep.
D-minus.
By 2020, isn't it?
Yeah, I think they've canned it now because they realised that the 20 million was insignificant with how much people already invested and still didn't get there.
So the Israelis sent a lunar lander into space in April. Okay, it didn't land. Okay, there's a 2.5 hour YouTube of this thing entering into the moon's orbit.
Yeah, but we know Bluetooth technology.
And its descent. And it's quite funny if you go ahead and watch it because, when it's landing, you can see their faces and then they start getting concerned and then they say, cut it off because I've lost the lander. Now, the problem we have is that we haven't put man back on the moon, nor have we really got any substance of putting anything else on the moon and allowing it to take back off again. Aside from the logistics, i.e. the time, because if you guys aren't aware, the Apollo 11 mission took 69 hours to get to the moon's surface. Okay, the latest Israeli moon lunar lander took 8 weeks.
That might be by choice because there's other reports out there that through that other program they've orbited the moon as well through one of the competitions, and it only took 4 to 5 days to get there.
Were you not thinking to get there faster?
Sorry?
We're 50 years down the track.
It depends on...
but they destroy the technology.
It might be safer to get there slower.
Well, it depends on dollars. Already Saturn V, there is no rocket currently... Saturn V was $1 billion to make. SpaceX next closest rocket currently costs $90 million, and it still doesn't have the same payload as Saturn V. So I guess it's the same, why would anyone spend that kind of dough, 100 billion in today's money to go back when based on whatever, it may be the reports that came back on Apollo's that it's just a bunch of rocks.
You're right, but why would the technology be destroyed?
Why would it be destroyed?
Why would it be? What good reason?
And it's too long to rebuild? Or it's too hard to rebuild it?
Well, you should be able to short circuit that by the fact that you've done it before. Like anything,
There should be some research papers somewhere, shouldn't there?
you would think so.
But Musk is on his way there, so clearly it's not destroyed.
Interestingly enough, Elon Musk, when you Google Elon Musk's take on the moon landing, he is very optimistic. I tried to find. I couldn't find an exact yes, I believe kind of statement or anything from him. But he's very grateful for the facilities of NASA.
Yeah, because I was looking for that, and I was like, if Elon Musk believes, I'm done. Like, it's sorted. If
you can't find Elon.
Yeah, if Elon says it's the go, then it's the go. Because he did the recent tests, I was saying to Matt earlier, out of the same control center that they did the initial polos from.
Yep. And he loves it. He's very grateful to NASA for it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm eating a bit of sausage. Thanks, Matt. But the fact for me, I mean, I guess
noise.
aside from, and as you can probably imagine, it does open some heated debates with people.
Do you just like the debate? Is that?
Yeah, cool. I mean, I love to debate. I was a debating champion back at school.
So you just pick the other side just for fun?
I'm a master debater, some say. But
you're good at maths too.
Hey?
You're good at maths too.
Am I? I failed maths in year 12. I only managed $250 million worth of money, but I just failed maths. Anyway.
You're not too quick.
I'm not too quick. The issue around conspiracy theories, and in particular the moon landing, because what I really wanted to get to, I wanted to use the moon landing to open up the ideology of conspiracies and the use of conspiracies when you're looking to open your mind up on things and examine plausibility, and not necessarily take a scientific approach to anything, but debate the fact. I mean, because I think a lot of us accept things too easily and don't challenge the status quo deeply enough.
Well, this is magic, right? Because you look at any magician that does anything, and largely it's not, but it is magic. But the crowd, the people want to believe. So in the affirmative side to your argument that this is a big hoax, everyone wanted to see it happen.
Do you know? Okay, so
I think
I'll take that.
But I would also agree 50% of the population actually want it to be a hoax because they actually want to be comfortable with the fact that the government does lie to them.
Well, 20% of the population of Americans do believe it's a hoax, which is quite a significant number when you think about conspiracy theories. When you talk about why would it be a conspiracy? Why would the American government want you to believe? It's actually quite interesting because in that day and age, there was two major world events going on. Does anyone know what they were? In the 60s, does anyone know what the two world events were?
I forget what it was, but yeah.
Korean War and the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah, okay.
All right, and America was involved in both of them. Okay, and they didn't come out looking good out of either one of them. Okay, and so to me, there's a lot of talk around shiny mirror ball. Let's distract the majority of the population. Funnily enough, the 80%.
Well, that was the whole program.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, the 10 years invested in the program was like we're doing this for the world.
And then Vietnam came off the back of
the Korean War,
and then the Vietnam
War. Off the back of the moon landing stuff. Yeah. Exactly.
Which cost $170 billion.
Yeah, and so where did the money go? Well, we could assimilate some money went to some other American interests, but they use a space program to channel that. That is a conspiracy, and there's reasons and there's plausible things that have gone on that will allow you to believe that. I mean, but did it happen? Does it matter? They're the kind of question, why are we trying to get back there now? Why is Trump keen to get back there? I don't know. There was nothing there.
But there's a report recently that China, someone else, a colleague of mine, and there's a video, I didn't get a chance to watch it. They've confirmed that they've seen remnants of Apollo. Other countries have confirmed when they flew past recently. There's a video.
No one's got a photo.
Huh?
The Catholic Church has the most powerful... the most powerful.
Don't go down that path.
Polaroid camera.
I was watching an interview.
What's it called? No, telescope.
Telescope.
And it's
actually
in Arizona.
the Catholic Church was apparently some of the biggest initial contributors to science.
Mate, they still employ the top 70 scientists in the world.
They
have the biggest and most powerful.
I thought that was super interesting.
Telescope. Why the fuck can't anyone find me a damn lunar buggy? Those things weren't small. How the hell they got them up there on those lunar landers in the first place is amazing. Okay, how the hell they used air to pump up those tires in a friggin' vacuum defeats science. And to me, where are they? Someone can show me. They can show me the tyre tracks.
They're not tyres. They're made of like wire. You can see in the Apollo 17 video.
Okay, what about the ball they were throwing around then? The ball. Yeah. On I think it was Apollo 14. They were playing golf and they were so golf's not a problem, but they were throwing an American football, kicking a soccer ball. They weren't filtered there. You Google it and no one has an answer for you. But space is a vacuum. Okay, to get to the moon, you go through a ton of radiation. You know, no one's been able to show me a photo. They can show me tire prints. You can see tire prints on a NASA website, but you can't see the lunar buggy or the 3 of them that were up there that never came back. Need to take a photo of those things?
Do you think there's a rover on Mars?
Well, that opens up that question, doesn't it? It opens up that question. I think sometimes it really fuddles me because in Perth we get some really, really terrible dropout zones in our mobile phone, but yet there wasn't a dropout zone from the moon back to the Space Centre. Didn't drop out at all.
And this is where my challenge
Houston,
comes.
we have a problem. That didn't drop out at all.
But so the thing is, and I think you touched on it, it meant a lot to the United States of America to potentially...
It still does. It's a very touchy subject.
Because you know what? Well, touchy subject, but also it's still right now, they're largely considered the leaders in the world of a lot of things, including sort of technology and advancement, even though they're not necessarily the smartest and leaders in certain areas.
They're the greatest fucking marketers.
Exactly. So, and if this was the hoax, then it's the greatest fucking marketing campaign there ever once was.
Yeah.
And the greatest movie ever made.
And there still is.
It's like I said, to me, it's plausible. I have not been able to say yes or no on this. And it's why I keep
hang on,
looking.
so there's some doubt.
No, there is absolutely no doubt. I cannot prove one way or the other, and I will not accept one way or the other with the information I know to date that we actually got to the moon.
Look, I haven't done enough research on the other side, but the argument from the film technology based of like my exposure and what I do to day is that fucking 50 years ago, there's no chance that they could have done that with like the technology.
So here's the other part, right? I went to the US back in 2012. I managed to get some time on the USS Hornet, which was the aircraft carrier that picked up Apollo 11, and it's got the Airstream caravan that the astronauts stayed in as a what do you call it? Contamination unit. They had to go there. Strange enough, if you Google online too, you'll see that the 3 astronauts. I won't go into their names because it's a question I've got for you guys. Had to sign re-entry cards. You know, when you go to different countries or when you come back to your home country, you got to sign those cards. These dudes they made them sign this form.
Like re-entry back to Earth.
Yeah, declare what you brought back: moon rocks and moon dust.
It's pretty spectacular.
Why?
If they hoaxed it, it's pretty spectacular because the level of realism and attention to detail and how much would have been thought out and storyboarded and every nook and cranny. Maybe that's what $100 billion does to a film, because they don't spend that much on Hollywood films these days anyway.
Why are there no stars? Why are there no stars in any of the pictures, mate?
Because you can't expose properly. It's daylight on the moon. You don't see stars during the day here.
But it's a black background.
Yeah, but if you...
I can't get my head around the...
So NVIDIA, a company that does
I saw the NVIDIA stuff. It's
cards,
beautiful pictures.
Yeah,
there's no dust on any of those legs.
No, they simulated it. Yeah, the boots are terrible. But they simulated it and they showed you why you can't see the stars because you need to overexpose for it. It's kind of the common problem we have with our clients. They want lights on a daylight render. And we're like, no, it doesn't work that way because in reality it doesn't work that way. When you understand a bit of how light works, same with the shadows and the whole, they needed fake lighting and stuff like that. The moment you put another light source in there would be an alternative shadow.
So one of the ones, you probably didn't watch the video I put into the show notes, but it's probably one of the clearest examples, particularly when they're landing, of a secondary or third light source being used.
I've seen those.
Hey?
But more to the point, I can't get my head around that And I agree with you. We do some video
I
production.
can't get my head around, you know.
Yeah, that too.
Don Pettit, please
to-
give me a phone call, bro, because how the hell can you stand on camera and tell the world that we've destroyed the technology that was probably the biggest thing for mankind and still probably is?
Well, he wants his family to live. Now, JB,
Please ring me,
JB,
Don,
look,
or drop me an email. Put it in the comments, mate.
he's not going to email you. It's like the great swag guru. He's not going to put his... He's not going to email you. But so JB, and look, I get it. I agree. And I know the work you do. We do a bit of video work here. Like I understand that, but I just can't get my head around how that wouldn't be harder to doctor than the effort of sending. Because like you, Conrad, I often look at the moon and I sit there and, I don't get a telescope
But I
out,
mean,
but I just look at it.
how do you, like,
and I wonder. And I'm like, that, to
What other
travel
things
that-
are we believing?
But if you watch like the live, if you would have watched it from start to finish, to have the foresight to construct it
fun.
in that way, that's pretty that's in
Stanley
alone is
Kubrick,
is there a
Stanley
16 hour-
Kubrick is a serious producer, man, or director.
Is there a 69-hour YouTube video of this? I'd be tempted to have a crack at this. We should watch the whole thing.
I'm happy to watch as much. I'll share with you all of my stuff I've got.
Is there a full video
No.
Is
No.
there the full transcript?
No,
Got a question.
Does it exist?
no,
Yeah, why is that?
exactly.
Because it was a 90-minute feature film. Deployed in 17 different sets.
There's one from
And everyone
NASA.
wanted
There's
to
one
believe
from
it.
NASA that's 3 hours long.
If
Okay,
you
I'm watching
trust
that.
anything from NASA, I'm gonna delete your number on my phone.
You're right, because the truth is, and look, right or
I want
wrong,
to call you.
whether this happened or not, the whole point of it is marketing, and because the United States wanted to wanted to be perceived as the leaders of the world,
leaders,
right?
yeah.
And right or wrong, whether it happened or not, that's what they achieved.
Can we lighten the mood up, because I mean this is not a slaughtering session. I really want to just test your knowledge on the moon landing. It is the 50th anniversary of the greatest conspiracy known to mankind. So let's just ask some questions. Which president considered it important to land a man on the moon and bring him back safely?
Reagan.
Kennedy.
It was Kennedy. Well done.
Ronald Reagan.
What was the name of the NASA mission that the moon landing was part of?
Huh?
What was the name of the mission?
Apollo.
11.
Apollo 11. Well done. Jeez.
What is this?
What are we
It's a quiz show.
Mate, we're trying to. This is an education series, right? Let's just teach some people some stuff. Which of these astronauts? Here's a good one for you. Which of these astronauts was not a part of the lunar mission? Buzz Aldrin, Neil Armstrong, Michael Collins, or Yuri Gagarin?
Yuri.
Oh, pretty easy. So Mickey Collins. Anyone know what Mickey Collins' role was?
Was he like the
Was he the producer?
understudy? Like
The understudy? No, he was in space. He was the one that was in the command module, hovering around, waiting for these fuckers to get back on. He was holding them steady. He's the one person that could do it.
Who's the guy that put the tape back on the on the
I wanna know
bumpers?
the guy
That was
took the
Apollo
photo of the
17.
landing.
That was
Because
Apollo
who the fuck is that?
17.
Must have
They
been a
used
Martian.
paper for a mud flap, but there was no mud because it was only, I don't know,
Dust flap.
there was a dust flap.
More specifically, in what month did the moon landing take place? This is the
July.
July. Anyone want to give me the day?
20th. Said it before.
In which country? Was it the 20th?
Well, true story, because it says here, it was the 20th of July. It says here
What
20th.
day? What day was it on the moon?
Who the fuck knows? Who was the president? Yeah, this is a good one for you. Who was the president of the US at the time of the moon landing? We all know that JFK wanted to get to the moon. He obviously got assassinated. That's another conspiracy theory, by the way. It's another great one. And I went to Dallas to look at that one too.
I always forget the order.
Well,
of these
apparently
ones.
Kennedy didn't actually want to go to the moon. It was just literally
It was written for him.
It was a power
Yeah,
play.
yeah.
He didn't care about
Well, he
space.
didn't believe we could do it.
Nah.
But anyway,
It was Arnie.
who was it? Which one was it? Johnson, Nixon, Ford, or Agnew?
It was Nixon, wasn't it?
It was Nixon. Yeah, so the conspiracy theory around Johnson, or around Kennedy getting killed, was that Johnson sniped him or got his mates to do it. That's another episode.
Shall we go to the JFK assassination? That'd be a good one.
Mate, I went to Dallas. They've got X's on the road that mark the two spots he got hit by bullets. It is ridiculous. All right,
I
ridiculous.
love America.
True, true or
Film
false?
was 9/11.
The Apollo 11 mission wasn't the first time a craft had landed on the moon.
True.
Was or wasn't?
the Apollo 11 mission wasn't the first time a craft had landed on the moon.
False. I reckon it was.
Didn't the Russians get a rover on there first?
The Soviets got there first. It wasn't manned, obviously.
Yeah.
But they'd gotten to the moon first.
Allegedly.
They apparently lost a lot of people in space too, but they don't admit to that. No, seriously, they've doctored some photos. It's really crazy when you start looking at this shit. What was the name of the lunar module that the part that actually landed? This is quite interesting because it's a quite famous statement.
Lem?
No?
Oh.
The part that landed.
Yeah.
Oh,
The vessel that landed
I
had a
can't
name.
remember the name. Yeah.
The Eagle. The Eagle has landed.
Of course.
Oh, of course.
True story, man. It is what it is. Which of these...
Are we going to cut this multi-choice bullshit out of the podcast? Or?
No, why not? No, why would you do it? You know that these guys were actually... Aldrin and
This is a
Armstrong...
conspiracy.
Aldrin and Armstrong were asked to put their hand on a Bible and confess to, swear on a Bible that they land on the moon. Neither one of them did. There was footage of Buzz Aldrin being asked, and he clocked the guy in the chin for asking him, but still didn't do it.
What are these guys? So we can confirm that they built a rocket. They all got in there, and people watched them go up into the atmosphere. At least, what did they do for a few days?
Orbited the Earth, man. I believe we win. I believe
But we
we've
could
been.
see that. Wouldn't you just be like, they're supposed to be on the moon, but they're just fucking floating around?
Well,
They orbited and then
here's
they
another
went
stat
up.
for you, right? There's currently 4,000 satellites in orbiting the Earth at the moment, and 300,000 pieces of space junk. Yet we still get clear photos of the Earth.
Yeah, the current space station.
Well,
does.
there's a scrap metal joint on
So
the moon.
there's a theory about the space station as well, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's a scrap
That's
metal
fucking
joint on the moon.
simulated
That's
too,
where
eh?
that's where the buggies are.
What
the scrap metal man is up there.
Here's one for you. The general area in which the Eagle landed was called the...
Area 51.
That's where it was shot. That's another conspiracy. But yeah, that's where it was shot, they reckon. The Sea of Tranquility.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually quite famous. You guys don't know. I'm surprised. All you guys believe in the moon landing. You don't know anything about it. What was the competition with the
I
Soviets?
actually went to university, instead. Learned some other shit.
What was this is the time I didn't go to university.
We just learned some other bullshit.
What was the competition with the Soviets for dominance in space commonly called?
Space race.
Oh, you cheating?
Gold star.
All right, a couple more, and then we can wind up. Do you want? What are we doing?
You go.
Wind up.
It's not done.
This was for Michael because Michael would have got this right.
Because he's a skeptic, or
What key word did Armstrong leave out of his small step, giant leap statement?
It's a letter A.
He did leave out the letter A. That's one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind. That's what he meant to say, but he didn't
That's
say
another
amen.
conspiracy theory is if it was just pre-recorded, why didn't they just redo it when he
what's
messed
the
up
problem
his
with
major
saying
line?
for man? Big
Who
deal.
knows, mate? I don't
Once-
care. I
man,
mean, that's what they
bullshit.
reckon. Again, I don't know. I don't really care.
Who says the right
Just
thing?
be like, cut, redo.
Yeah.
Which of these branches of military did none
You
of the
fucked it
Apollo
up.
astronauts serve in? Air Force, Army, Marines, or Navy?
Air Force.
They did not serve in.
Oh,
Navy.
sorry.
Marines. Last one. Because Matt's make me uncomfortable.
What?
Which of these Hollywood directors was dogged by rumors that he helped fake the moon landing? I've given that away.
Rubric.
And I've already forgotten.
Stanley Kubrick. Died in 1999, so we'll never know. Unless someone finds a tape, or was that destroyed part of that Don Pettis interview?
But didn't Trump want to go back or do something?
By
to prove?
2024, he's got to get a second term to make that happen. So maybe that's his ploy.
Well, once we get to the end of the Earth, the flat end of the Earth, there might be this little area out the side where they filmed it. So
So getting back to the reason for the moon landing
flat Earth.
topic, gentlemen,
What about flat Earth?
is there any value? I mean, we're all business owners here, right? I mean, we all have to.
is there any value to business?
Is there any value in creating a story to sell your product?
Absolutely.
No, is there
Hey,
any
what
value?
was the tagline you came up with the other day?
Which one? I don't know.
The flower and the weed.
Oh, no, that wasn't me. What What is it? Oh, I'd love to be able to quote the guy. I can't right now, but a flower is just a weed with an advertising budget.
I heard that one before.
So
So is there value
right
in
now.
spending time in proving things or disproving things?
America's controlled the world for 60 years.
Well, at least
The answer is
50.
yes.
One piece of value I get from whether they did it or not is how simply they were able to do it. Like the technology back then was pretty minimal. They say that the entire computing ability of the whole mission.
I've been to the Air and Space Museum. It was diabolically minimal.
Yeah, can fit easily on a modern.
I know where all my Atari buttons
You're a
went.
layman looking at it.
I know where all my Atari buttons went. Seriously, they are Atari buttons in these spaceships.
So if they were able to achieve
So
something
not ergonomic.
that monumental back then with such minimal technology, the reason why we can't do it now is we have so much red tape, so many
We should be going to Uranus now.
safety regulations,
Talking
so
about
many.
Uranus.
Granted, a lot more value for human life, and we're not willing to just send guinea pigs up into space with these half-baked kind of projects.
Well, you'd probably
The
struggle.
way they
You'd probably
work.
struggle to send a monkey back into space, given the RSPCA and the cruelty to animals regime. And
100%, yeah.
and you're
It's
exactly
soon to
right.
send a human
You're
nowadays.
exactly right. I think
PC.
that becomes a problem with the political correctness of everything, right? I mean, so Donald Trump is talking about going back to the moon. He wants to send a female back to the moon, which is a tactical ploy. It gets half the America to vote for him.
One of
Coming
his,
from Donald Trump, that's amazing.
Is he trying to send Stormy or?
I don't know.
Stormy Daniels?
Perhaps.
I think there's good value in.
It's a good debate, right?
I think it's to try and not be too close-minded and have consideration. I mean,
Close-minded, or you want to be inquisitive?
sorry.
You want to be inquisitive or closed-minded, or just agree? Agree.
No, I think it's welcoming.
Believe what you hear.
Yeah, yeah. Don't believe what you hear and kind of welcome other ideas. I mean, everything kind of that we've tried to talk about, which is to be at least considerate of
Curious.
the other points of view.
So just quickly, before we end up rounding up here, gentlemen, if you had an hour to spare, I know you're all very busy men. If you had an hour to spare, where would you kill your time on the internet? What would you be doing?
Well, fuck, I wasted an hour and a half last night on this, which I couldn't afford.
Well, if you had an hour to spare, what would your choice hour be spent on the internet? What would you be doing?
The challenge right now is that Jacob's just started crying, and I'm not. I don't really know why.
We'll come back to Jacob. What would you do
when
with
his
an hour?
topic is released in,
What would you do, Justin?
well, it depends what state I'm in. If I'm like procrastinating, I do
One way of putting it.
I do movie trailers.
Yeah, okay, cool.
So in other words, moon landings.
Hannah?
Movie trailers are a really good way to watch movies without watching them because not much else happens. It just takes 90 minutes instead of 3. Look, I will watch stuff like this. I'll watch stuff on Newton. I'll watch all sorts of random things, stuff about ancient artifacts and things that really make
Newton
me.
was potentially gay. It's another conspiracy.
Yeah, but it doesn't really matter. It's not impactful to me on his work.
Who? I thought you
Newton.
talking about him, Matt.
For example. Oh, right.
Well,
it's potential.
his namesake probably is, but anyway.
But no, I actually do enjoy digging into different things, like things. Other examples are like Stonehenge and, and other things. Like we have these
Those
other
pyramids, man. Where'd they come from?
Exactly, and
Stonehenge is actually crazy.
And I know, and so I do quite enjoy looking and watching documentaries and things and videos about these kind of things and just sort of like blowing my mind, trying to explain it. And this is another one that I have spent a little bit of time, but really not a lot. So hence why sitting on the fence. I really do want to believe, but the more and more I dig into it, I just think that if we're struggling, and I can see that it's very reasonable that we're struggling today, then what we had then was ridiculously inadequate for what we're trying to achieve. And I often look up and see this moon and think that's a long way away, and there's a lot of challenges in between.
But simplicity is the ultimate sophistication.
You nailed that one, JB.
What do you spend an hour on?
Where's my button?
Hang on. Jacob's going to laugh again or cry, one of the two.
Who's Jacob?
I just think it's funny that we've got a podcast by men for men, and no one else picked up on your what would you spend an hour on the internet doing? But
Is that why you're crying? Do you like to watch things and cry?
Yeah, what? Am I losing? Have I lost something here?
pornography.
Just
you
your
spent an
marbles.
hour on pornography?
No. I just thought no one else thought it would be funny.
So you would spend an hour on pornography?
I often
But
end
it's the
up.
first thing that came to his mind. You got a spare hour?
Wouldn't take me an hour.
Just need a pop-up ad.
I often end up down like the Wikipedia rabbit hole where I'll look up something and then it's because it's so rich with hyperlinks. I'll lose an hour easily on there and I'll kind of go,
Yeah, cool.
I wonder where this began.
It is a rabbit's warren, right? That stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Hang on, stop.
What?
No, we're not done yet.
What do you
You're
mean?
not done yet.
What do you mean?
What does it mean to you?
What does it mean to me? You know what?
Okay, so did it happen or not?
No, I don't believe it did. I don't believe it did. I'm comfortable with my thoughts that we've been hogwashed. Well, the majority of the world has been hogwashed. I haven't been.
By who?
By the Illuminati.
No, there we go.
Illuminati.
Because you can't just go a government or like
No.
by who?
No, because we know that the Americans' Federal Reserve is run by a bunch of private people. It's not a government.
Absolutely.
All right, so the spend is controlled by the Federal Reserve. So the reality is,
Do you believe in
that
the Rothschild
100% I do.
theory?
yeah,
Conspiracy?
mate. If you think about the logistics of war and what happens with war, and you know the way stock markets work around war, yes, they dive on the back end of war and they build on the rise of war. Why? Because infrastructure is needed.
Actually, I've got a book for you. It's called IBM and the Holocaust.
Yeah, okay. It's quite funny. Like, this is the other one. When you start looking at how people profit from war, do you know Hugo Boss designed all the Nazi uniforms?
Do you know about the IBM thing?
No, I don't.
IBM made all the machines that were used to count the killings of all the Jews. The amount of money they made during the war.
How about this one? Henry Ford gave the Germans the motors for their tanks. Great American hero.
But it's not even just about those specific American. It's actually all these American companies were the ones funding.
Yeah,
And basically,
and still do.
and not just funding, they were actually the ones providing all the equipment, the materials, the guns, all sorts of things. And so these wars go a lot deeper than just two countries fighting each other. They go into a whole bunch of other
100%.
dimensions.
And I think this is the bigger thing. When you start to challenge stuff, the world becomes more interesting. It becomes more interesting, in my thoughts. So no, I don't believe in the moon landing, and I'm happy with my thoughts on that fact. And I can respect everyone's point of view, like I can respect their point of view on religion and faith and all that type of stuff. But you know what? I don't have to believe them, and I'm okay with that.
So similarly, perhaps for the same reason, I feel a lot of people believe in faith and kind of go, can we prove it or not prove it? That's not irrelevant. I believe this is how things work, and they kind of put their faith in that story and that kind of system. That's kind of the way I choose to look at a lot of these things. I
would say choose better and more powerful stories then.
I just don't. I prefer not to know that economies are run around wars and that governments are capable of pulling off
Oh, you want the red pill?
conspiracy things.
Oh, the blue pill. Which pill?
And now we go down the Matrix. Do
I just
you want
like,
the 80% pill or the 20% pill?
I just like
Or do you
to
want the
believe
1%
that
pill?
life is a bit simpler. And, yeah. When
All
I
right, gentlemen.
read about these things and find out
I'm
about
trying to
them-
wrap up here.
Sorry.
We're wrapping up. We're 25% over.
Are we?
Yeah, not
You know
really.
what, guys, I really appreciate the chat. I know I asked for a bit of leeway on this one, so thank you. It's not our typical show.
I think we could do a whole podcast series on this.
Hey, I'm open for it.
I'm sure there's a few out there already.
There may be a few out there already.
Probably well more research than us.
No. Our useless points of view are very important.
Thank you, gentlemen.
And uneducated
It's
and
been
babbling.
my pleasure.
How was the drink?
Sensational. Whatever a blanc de blanc is, if anyone leaves a comment for us, we'll figure out what a blanc de blanc is.
It was actually really nice.
Yeah, it's a
I
white of
enjoyed
whites.
that.
Yeah, that's what blanc is. It's a white of white. So it's whiter than the average white. On that note, champagne.